When you set a plan and things don't go to plan, what do you do? How do you communicate that inside the organization? How do you adjust? How do you think about planning? These are all topics that we're going to hit in today's episodes.
The bigger you get, there's less room for error.
Sometimes strategically, the right strategy is to do something that's painful.
Just go ugly early. There is no point in sugarcoating bad news. The key to it, though, is you also need to always make sure that there's hope, because if people lose hope, you're screwed.
You know your numbers, be in them. God, it's not that hard.
If you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Operators Podcast. This week, we're talking about a topic that has been really relevant to me this year. When you set a plan and things don't go to plan, what do you do? How do you communicate that inside the organization? How do you adjust? How do you think about planning? These are all topics that we're going to hit in today's episodes. But before we get into it, I want to say thank you to all the sponsors that make the pod possible. We couldn't be more appreciative of their partnership. Fulfill, Northbeam, Rich Panel, Sarah's, Postscript. All of these are softwares designed to help you to be more effective as an operator, which is what we're all about. So with that said, on to today's show.
Fulfill ad alert, everybody. Fulfill X Claude just dropped. There is now a chat function in Fulfill where you can get GPT answers to all of your top questions. Do you want to know Q4 forecast? Do you want to know your balance sheet? Do you want to know where customers are shopping across the US? Ask questions in native language and get answers right back to you in Fulfill. Jason's using it right now. Jason, how are you using it?
Well, our team is just always dying to get information quicker. We have so much of our business that's run on Fulfill. So instead of having to like dig through stuff, dig through spreadsheets, et cetera, just to be able to have things built on the fly really fast. I'm all about speed of execution and communication. And this is just going to help speed everything up for us. I'm really stoked about it.
Sharoon, the CEO of Fulfill, sent me an email and he's like, hey, here is your Q4 day-by-day order projections, and here's the best bundles you should have on your website. I didn't have to do any work. That's pulled straight from Claude in 2 questions. And now anyone using Fulfill can look like a genius and get answers immediately. So this is the future. This is where everything's going. You need to have all of your information in one place. Then you can put AI on top of it. We're using Fulfill for that. Fulfill's using Claude or Grok or ChatGPT. They can plug in any AI tool you want. You can get all of your Fulfill information with simple native language prompting that you're used to, like a ChatGPT or anything else. We can ask in one sentence, build a heat map of where our customers are in the US by state based on revenue. Show me where customers who brought product A and returned product B and what the LTV pattern there. You could break down fulfillment costs by carrier, by region, by product for all orders or just orders that are over $150. Any sort of segmentation you want is available with this because all of your data is in Fulfill and you can access it with Claude with native language. It is what is happening in the future. We are at the point where AI tools are plugging into your data via an ERP like Fulfill. We're getting a lot of value out of this. Jason's getting a lot of value out of this. Check it out today. Go to fulfill.io/operators. Thank you, Fulfill, for supporting this awesome podcast.
How's everybody today?
Today is a great day, but it's also a very weird day because last night I'm getting ready to go to bed and set my alarm and I can't find my phone, right? And I just set my alarm on my phone. And like my phone's nowhere. Lexi was looking for it. I was looking for it. Couldn't find it. But I do have a backup phone. And literally only 2 people have the phone number, Lexi and my assistant, Moira. So I'm like, all right, I'll get the backup phone. I got to charge that and set the alarm. And then I set the alarm and the alarm is so quiet for some reason this morning. I really didn't hear it. And it was like 6:20 when I got it. And I'm like, I guess my phone's in the car. I don't know. And then I'm walking out to come here and I like, I got to drive, it's like half a mile. So I normally walk, right? It takes me like, actually less than half a mile. I've timed it. It's a 6-minute walk from my place to the HexCloud office. And I'm like, and I often walk, but I was like, I can shave 3 minutes and get there and start the pod. And I get in the car and there's just like every street is blocked with traffic, which is ridiculous.
This is my problem today.
You guys have been to the office. You guys have been here, right? It's like, it's like not that popular of a neighborhood where there should be traffic at 7 a.m. It's not like it's the 10 freeway. Like, well, and then I go into my pocket and I'm like, there's my phone. Like, how did my phone show up? And I don't have my wallet. And I'm like, I can't even get into the office because I don't have my swipe card to do the pod. So I had to turn around, double park in front of my building, run upstairs. My wife's half asleep. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I found my phone, but I can't. I had to find my wallet. So I get my wallet and I get here.
Your new middle name is Hot Mess, dude.
I mean, seriously, then I get here and then neither of you jokers are even on.
Well, because we know you're gallivanting around LA.
I'm sweating, like trying to get here. And you guys are, and I'm like, well, maybe the pod's canceled.
Jason, the key card thing, I had to make a backup key card and keep it in my car because of how many times I'd locked my wallet in the building. Because we have we have a key card on the entire, like the front door of the building. So I can feel that.
Backup key card is huge.
You guys know what time I wake up. I have gotten to this office at 5:30 in the morning and forgotten my damn key card at home, which is a 25-minute drive away. And I'm a good 2 hours away from the next human entering the building.
Oh my gosh.
So I have like out of sheer being a stubborn mule, I just sat on the stairs one morning.
No, you didn't.
Pulled out my laptop. I just waited. I was just sitting there for 2 hours. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not moving. Like, this is my building. Screw it. So I just sat there. And then 2 hours later, somebody came in and let me in.
Man.
But Jason, hang on. Hold on. You have a backup phone? How does that work with your wife? Like, if I had a backup phone, my wife would have questions.
That's what I want to know.
Dude, you know that this is going to originate from a golf story, right? I mean, you know that. So like the place I play golf up in Carmel, AT&T is the only thing that works. And I'm on Verizon and you literally just get no reception for 4 hours.
You have a golf phone?
So my wife made me get the backup phone so that she can reach me on the golf course.
You are proof there's levels to this thing, Jason. There's like different levels of wealth. There's a level of wealth where you're playing a bunch of golf. There's a level of wealth where you have a phone for when you're playing golf. This is amazing.
That is so good. So good.
So Sean's at Beanstalk.
Yeah.
And not joining us. And I just want to know, guys, does he get a commission for promoting Beanstalk? Because he's talked about nothing.
He like actually said that, but I'm like, does Sean own Beanstalk? Like he just decided to make this his mission in life to get all of the people he's connected to Beanstalk. In fact, somebody on Twitter made a joke about it, that it's just like,
oh, I saw that. There's like 1,000 of Sean's closest friends from Twitter is who goes to Beanstalk. Yeah, I have no idea. I think he owns it. I'm with you guys because he's a big fan. Dude, it's there's a lot of people there.
Yeah, there are a lot of people. It's a good group. I mean, look, it's nice to go to New York. I personally wouldn't want to trek over to Brooklyn from Manhattan to go do this stuff, but I guess people are willing. And I was thinking about this. I wanted to ask you guys. My level of FOMO is actually pretty low on this one. I remember there were a couple in New York where I was like, oh man, I really wish I could go. I just simply couldn't be there this week. Like I got to be in the office. There's just so much going on, but the FOMO factor to me on these events is down a lot. Like if we were all going to be there and then I would miss it, then I would really be disappointed. But I don't know. Matt, what do you think? I think you've got some FOMO.
I had FOMO. I was like, who was it? Maytab and Katie? No, Katie was texting me or in one of the groups we're in, I think. Anyway, she was texting and she's like, we're all sitting at the bar at the hotel. And everybody's there except for like us three. So I was like, she's like, you, Mike, and Jason are like the only guys not around.
She's really good at that.
We're in the text groups and they're chattering with each other about going to brunch and stuff while we're grinding away in the salt mines.
I also really like New York, Jason, and it's been so long since I've been back to New York. So I think there was like some element to that, some element of like, seeing everybody in these damn groups talking about having fun, hanging out with each other. Yeah, I don't get FOMO much though. But dude, I had quarterly planning yesterday, so I couldn't make it.
I think it's highly correlated to how remote are your companies. Like when your companies are really remote, then events like that, it's like, oh man, I get to go see some of my people. Whereas all three of us have like a strong in-person component, and it's actually quite a bit more difficult to just get away.
Dude, I have my whole exec team. I flew them in, like they're here for 3 days. I can also barely walk right now.
Yeah. Okay. So we haven't. I was gonna say, let's not bury the lead. Matt, in a Herculean effort to
it wasn't Herculean.
Well, whatever we want to define it as, you got to tell this story because this was one of the topics of discussion this weekend.
Oh yeah. So for those listening, I was texting these guys. I made an attempt at an ultra marathon, like an ultra trail this weekend, which they're hard. I didn't realize how stupid this one was. And just the sheer elevation gain And not, I guess like it's hard to describe, but like if you could see the photos, we weren't running. I think my biggest takeaway is like when you see ultra trail run, ultra marathon, you assume you're running. I think for 85% of this race, nobody was running. You're just climbing up these damn mountains, hand over fist. And I got to, I'll give you the punchline, but I got to like 85% done on the top of the second last mountain to get back. And I broke my foot.
So when you say break your foot, like, can you walk us through that?
Yeah, so I have really bad ankles from basketball as a kid. We were talking about this in the last with the baseball lifestyle guys. I played a lot of basketball when I was a teenager, and I screwed my ankles up royally for life. So I got to be careful when I'm doing this stuff. And I rolled my foot really good about like 10 miles into the race. Didn't think anything of it. Just kind of pushed through. Because like, Jason, you've done Ironman or, triathlons, right? So like these races are mostly a mindset game. You are just in pain for a long time and you just need to push through. It's like in your mind, you just got to get to a point where you're in pain, just accept that you're in pain and let your body do its thing because your body's capable of more than you think it is. So I rolled my ankle and I was running with my brother and he's like, "How you doing?" I'm like, "It's fine. Let's just keep going." And then I rolled it really bad on that last climb. And I heard a crunch and I broke the outer bone that attaches to your pinky. I think it's called the metatarsal, whatever that is.
Yeah.
There's like a little bone. Anyway, the funny thing is I broke the same damn one last year in the other foot, but playing tag with my kid. And I'm 44, guys. I've broken like 2 bones in my life, and now it's like back to back in years, and it's the same damn bone. I kicked, Jason, you're gonna love this. I like dodging out of the way of my 9-year-old, and I kicked my wine cellar door.
Oh yeah,
like this glass door with that foot, and it was so friggin' painful. Anyway, I rolled it, and then I had to get down the mountain, so I had another like 3.5 miles to get to the aid station with a broken foot, which was like a whole other level of pain. I don't think I've ever been like so uncomfortable.
How much did you have left in the race?
Oh, I could have finished the race. Like I was good. I did a lot of training getting to this thing. I was feeling exhausted, but I was kind of where I thought I would be. I was like, this is just a sufferfest, and my brother and I ran the whole thing together. And there was moments where he was in like a bad place, dude. There was one point where he had his headphones in and I could hear him in front of me and he was talking to himself. He was like, I'm just in a bad place. He's like, this is just dark thoughts.
When I was doing Ironman, like I went through, I started trying to get fit again, like in my mid 30s. And then when I was 36, I was getting, I was in pretty good shape. And I like, I'm going to do this half marathon. I was living in Fairfield, Connecticut. And there was a very popular half marathon that like a lot of the town went out and did. I'm like, I'm going to go do it. And I actually was never done more than 7 or 8 miles, but I went out and did it and I ran a really good time for me. And I was super stoked. I'm like, I'm going to sign up for the New York Marathon. Right. And I got every leg injury possible during training. And I literally jogged the New York Marathon for my first time and finished it in like 4 hours and 40 minutes. It was a complete embarrassment.
Dude, that's not bad.
But over the next successive few years, I kept like trying to run a sub 4 hour marathon. I finally ran a few of them. But and then I started doing triathlon. And, it's actually, now that I look back on it, it's just really stupid. It's just so stupid. Ultra running is stupid.
It's so stupid.
I tell people like the first person who ran a marathon died, right? Like, so that let's start there.
Doing like a sprint distance or an Olympic distance triathlon, like those are fun things. In the Olympic distance triathlon, if you're good at it, you're done in under 3 hours, 2.5 hours, and you did 3 different sports. So it's a lot of fun. But like doing an Ironman, by the time you get off the bike, you're just in pure survival mode. I remember I was like going to run to the next freaking power pole, the next telephone pole, and then walk the next and then run the next. And when you're at the point where you're like, I got to run to the next one or walk to the next one, you just shouldn't even be out there. It's like, it's silly.
Dude, it's stupid's the word. Like my brother is an Ironman. He's one of the most fit people I know. And he wound up finishing. So like we got to the aid station and I told him like, you got to finish. Like you still have 2 minutes before the cutoff, like go. So he finished the race. Dude, he's lost like 3 toenails. He limped into my office yesterday because he works at the same building. And he's like, that's the worst thing I've ever done. He's like, Ironman's got nothing on this stupid race.
Yeah.
And my team is like, you got to be like, are you going to do another one? And I looked at him, I'm like, no, like if you're not smart enough to learn from your mistakes, what are you doing?
I could have told you before you did it, by the way, Matt,
Ironman
that
Elise is 3
it
different
was a mistake.
sports. You swim, you bike, you run. But yeah, these ultra runners, this is just like, that's a weird kind of crazy.
Well, and it's a weird kind of biological makeup that even makes it possible. Like I sprinted in high school. I'd compete at the state level as a sprinter. And if you were like, your life literally depends on you doing an ultra marathon, I think it'd be like, well, it's been fun because I'm dead. There's just, my body cannot. There is no world where like running 50 miles is like a thing that my body could do.
You'd be amazed at what your body can do. It's just a question of like, should you? Because I didn't realize like how all the health, like it's really just unhealthy too. Like your liver could shut down, your kidneys are stressed.
They've taken hair samples from marathoners, and what they can do is they can like look at the cortisol levels and different stuff in your bloodstream. And it's like, yeah, like you're fundamentally, like the amount of stress and strain you're putting on your body is not good when you're at certain levels.
Right now, Mike, like my testosterone is like crashed because cortisol was so high going into the race, right? Like you don't realize how much you're screwing with your system. And then the race itself is like extra hard compared to training because you never do the actual distance when you're training, right? Jason knows this. You kind of like get close and then you stop and then like you just rely on mindset and like training to get you through it. But I've been like, I feel so flat the last 3 days. Like I'm tired, like I'm kind of lethargic. And like we did quarterly planning yesterday. I think that was like the least energetic I've been in a quarter. Like I'm usually pretty fired up for these things. I like this rhythm in my business.
All right, operators, quick break. This episode is brought to you by Northbeam, the marketing attribution platform that we use every day. Now, we all know there's a ton of attribution solutions out there, but I want to talk about what makes Northbeam different and why everyone across the operators trusts their data. The Northbeam difference, it just doesn't give just last click credit. It spreads credit across the entire customer journey. So top of funnel campaigns finally get the recognition they deserve. This is huge, especially for me, trying to grow our brand. Top of funnel is just really important, but knowing how much to spend there and giving it credit is just huge for us. So there's a ton of attribution models and accounting modes giving you maximum flexibility to track across huge look back windows or conversion lags for all you operators with long consideration periods. That's another big one for us. Years ago, if people would have looked at our Facebook ad account and told us to stop running ads, like without having the right look back and attribution windows, you're just not making good decisions. Northbeam tracks both clicks and views, and you hear a lot about that now, view through being really important. So you can finally prove TikTok, YouTube, Snapchat campaigns are driving revenue. So check out their clicks and deterministic views model, which is one of their newer models, which we found really, really useful. This model separates new and returning customer acquisition clearly, so you know which ads are driving incremental growth. Northbeam Apex is crazy. This is an integration with ad platforms like Meta and Apple Oven that allows those ad algorithms to actually drive your ad delivery based on first-party performance data. Nobody else has this. The immediate efficiency returns at the push of the button here are pretty amazing. And then, it never inflates revenue, just the real numbers that actually line up with Shopify. So it's a true source of truth. That's a Northbeam difference, just the real numbers that actually line up with Shopify and an analytical rigor in the platform that I personally trust and have trusted since like 2020. Look, I don't like paying for SaaS. The people on the pod don't like paying for SaaS solutions, especially Sean loves to talk about it, unless they make us money. And clearly Northbeam has paid for itself over and over, and we'd be flying blind without it. So, everyone uses Northbeam. Every big brand I know, every good brand I know uses Northbeam. Manscaped, Dollar Shave Club, AG1, Ridge, everyone in my chats. I trust Northbeam. They're one of the foundational platforms that we use here at HexCloud. And so if you're ready to cut through the noise, stop guessing, and actually see which ads are driving your business, book a demo at northbeam.io/demo and tell them the operators sent you. Join the club. Matt, let's talk about quarterly planning. I think this is
Yeah.
interesting. Tell me what you guys tell us what you guys are planning, what you're doing, what it's like, how many people are there, like how's it going?
We do. So like I'm a fan of traction EOS. Like I think every business when you're starting out, you should adopt an operating system as opposed to build one yourself. So like Rockefeller Habits, EOS, like these are popular operating systems, and they give you like playbooks, right? Like here are the meeting rhythms you need to run. Here's who should be in them. Here's what an org chart should look like. You know, you guys should have like 7 to 10 numbers that run the business, like just basics, right? So we've kind of run on traction. I've built both my companies now, on my last one and this one, on some form of traction. And so what that means, there's a lot of things it means, but for rhythms, it means that I get my exec team together. We fly everybody in, and for 1 to 2 days every quarter, we do like what's called a QBR. So like you look at the business, all the numbers, how are we doing to plan, all that stuff, right? Are we on forecast? Are we off? Like everything. And then we spend half the time looking like 90 days ahead. So next quarter, do we have everything, what we need? Are we focused on the right things? And we sort of look 12 to 18 months out because product cycles are long. So for us yesterday, I don't know how you guys do this. I want to hear about it too. We spent half the time kind of like in the weeds, each member of my exec team presenting where their part of the business is and what's kind of on deck. So like immediate term, what are we doing? So yesterday was fun because we spent a lot of time on this Arizona factory that we're building, right? Because that's like about to hit and become real, like real. So that was kind of cool to like get in the weeds a bit there because I'm not in those details. But then honestly, the most fun part is we started our 2026 planning process. So what are all the major products that we are thinking we're going to release next year? What's the timing of those things? How does it fit in with any other major events, tentpole events we're doing? All of it, right? We try to like be as detailed as possible in what we think needs to happen to hit whatever the goals are in the business. Because like, I don't know, Mike, you asked this question too, like, what do you do when you're missing forecast? And we've talked about this in the show, like setting budgets and plans and forecasts, like the minute you click save, they're wrong. And I saw this question in e-commerce fuel and ECF recently, like, how do you guys plan your business? How do you forecast? We're always missing our forecast. And I don't know about you guys, but like when we were younger as a company, forecasting was me basically saying like, I want to grow 40% next year. So like, that's the forecast.
You got to start somewhere, right? Like, I don't think that's wrong. I mean, pick a number that you think you can like reason with some reasonable amount of optimism hit. When I was a banker, we did a lot of models, and I always say, well, models are wrong. But we typically, when you're doing a financial model, you've got base case, upside case, and downside case. That's the way to think about it. And like the base case may be a little like reasonably optimistic because you're kind of broadcasting that like externally. So reasonably, and you know, we've done that too, like, and we're always wrong. Like we're always wrong, but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere. I think, okay, so like one of the things I really like, there's a lot of stuff I like about planning. It is probably my favorite time of the year is like planning days because I get to go into the weeds and stuff that I just don't spend time in. But another great benefit of this, because I've told people this, dude, and I've had like younger founders and smaller companies be like, oh, we're too small for that. That's stupid. We shouldn't do it. I've been doing this since we were like $3 million in revenue. Okay. And there was like me and my partners and one other person in the room. And the nice thing is that like building the discipline around this early, you then plug people into your business and they plug into the rhythms. So like you've got all this muscle that you've been developing and now new people just slot in and they get to help you row and get into the same cadence. So we have I think there was 8 people, including myself there yesterday. We go through financial models. Like it's a really nice amount of detail. And then we sometimes like we get a little too into the weeds, but you kind of like trying to stick at that like 5,000 foot level. So I'm a huge fan of this, if you can't tell. Like I think every company, every leader has to have some way of planning the business where they pull information from their team that lets them make better decisions. Like we talk about judgment all the time. This is like the main room. Like I'm curious how you guys do this because like you have a really strong partnership team at Simple Modern. You've talked about this. Are you guys structured or are you more, I guess, like you guys just talk every day so it just happens?
I think in the early years, it was a lot more like, hey, we're just trying to grow as fast as we can. And what's the next foot in front of the other. And then in the last 2 or 3 years, we've gotten more formalized with OKRs and trying to have objectives that the group came up with. We have one of our team members, Brett, is in a head strategy role where he helps me like put a lot of the kind of concrete. I'm more of an abstract leader, and he helps really turn it into concrete things. I think that one of the reasons why I brought this up is that the more formalized you get in your plans, the more often you're going to just have times where it's like, hey, we're just missing. We're just like, we had a forecast, and I think you guys have said this already. I don't know that I've ever given an accurate forecast. This isn't like the weather, like the ranges are really big and you just are going to miss. And we make fun of weathermen. They miss all the time. Like anytime you make a forecast, you're going to be wrong in one direction or another. But when you start really formalizing planning and saying, okay, guys, next year we're going to do $4 million in kids' backpacks or whatever, then you're kind of putting a goal in front of the team, and you're either going to usually really beat that goal or really come in short of that goal. And then you have to kind of figure out, well, okay, how do we manage that? And as I was thinking about this topic this morning, what I realized is that once you put a plan out, you basically understand that about half the time you're going to miss your plan, And so what do you do? And that there's really kind of 3 things that could be responsible for missing that plan. One is, hey, we just set a bad goal. Like it was optimistic, it was hopeful. We threw out a number that we really didn't have the capacity to hit. Another is, hey, we just didn't execute well enough to hit the goal. We didn't invest enough. We didn't take it seriously enough. We didn't prioritize it, whatever. And then the third one is that there were market forces. There were things that could not have been foreseen. Trade war, like this kind of thing. This year has been a great case study in this because like just about every number that we thought could be true, with the exception of back to school kind of behaved somewhat similar to what we expected. But pretty much everything else about our market and about the circumstances has changed pretty dramatically this year. And so it's been a really interesting question to me as a leader. You get your whole team together, you do all your planning, you have the plan, and then you realize that the plan is kind of not worth the paper it's written on. What do you do? And that's been a big question of leading this year for me.
Yeah. It's so like I think there's always that quote, right? It's like if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So I like having the time carved out. And sometimes it's like these planning sessions they don't feel awesome. But there are moments like yesterday, there's one particular, like we were talking about Q4 and Q1, so like Q4 25, Q1 26 calendar. And we were going into, my head of supply chain was like, she was reviewing inventory flows below me and just like PO sizes and what are we cutting. And that discussion turned into like a good 45-minute, if this, then that, if that, then this. And we uncovered a couple like very important sort of like decision moments over the next 30 days and what would need to go into like what's going to make those true, false. And those are going to kind of be these gating moments for the business to say like, yes, let's go push more, pull back. So I think I don't advocate for like lone warrior style leadership. Like if you have smart people around you, even if you don't have like an exec team, I'm a fan of just getting the smartest people in the company together and working through some of this stuff. Because Mike, what I think I saw this actually in ECF specifically, but somebody posted about like, I think his name is Christopher Chan, they're at $5 million in revenue. And he's like, mistakes now feel a lot worse. Like the size of mistakes are like, they could be actually lethal. When you're $1 million brand, it's hard to make a lethal mistake. Like that's pretty small. But when you start to get a little bit bigger, inventory mistakes can be quite lethal, especially if you're growing super fast. We see this in D2C all the time. It's like the 0 to 20 million jump is like 2 years big. And I just think it's so dangerous. So like these planning rhythms to me are a great way to build some judgment and some gating into the business, even though they feel a little slow and a little like professional. I think they're probably the right call for most companies.
Yeah. And I think you used a word there that's pretty important. I felt this more every business professionalizes over time. And one of the reasons why you have to professionalize the business is so that it's not dependent on any of the parts that make up the team. It's not overly dependent on any of the parts. I think when you are founder led and you have kind of your original team, it's maybe less important to have this stuff, but you have to put these pieces in place so that, when somebody does transition and you bring in a new hire, that you can plug new pieces in. And if there's a day with Simple Modern where I'm not running the ship, that it can function. There's a lot of things that you can do when you're the founder that another CEO can't do, is kind of my opinion.
Is that a permission thing or a culture thing, Mike? Like what?
Well, I think it's some of both, because my view is that the founders have this special kind of latitude to be able to say, hey, this is where we're going. This is what we're about. And I can say that authoritatively because I started this thing. Whereas when you're leading a company that you didn't start, you always have to, it's a little bit different. And this is more true when you're talking about values and culture type stuff. But I think just as an example, sometimes strategically, the right strategy is to do something that's painful, like financially, for example, like, hey, we're going to plow into this new market. We're going to lose money the first 2 years because it's so important for us to gain market share and have a foothold in this market, whatever that is. That's difficult for somebody who's not a founder. That's difficult for somebody who doesn't have a big piece of the cap table to say that. You got to really have the buy-in of a lot of, because people here are losing money and they think, man, that could be, does that mean that I lose my job? Are the shareholders going to be okay with that? Whereas a CEO founder can come in and say, hey, we're doing this. I'm a big shareholder. I'm the biggest shareholder. I started this thing. This is important. And I think this is some of the reason why the research that's out there just says founder CEOs outperform. It's because they have a larger range of motion strategically of what they can do. And when they make more dramatic strategic actions, they can get away with it. Whereas if you're not in the founder CEO role, then you just have a lot more risk of getting canned if you make a dramatic action and it didn't go well right off the bat.
Operators, Black Friday, Cyber Monday is coming up. Is your SMS list ready? If not, get on Postscript. They are helping us drive 14% more email signups through their better opt-ins. They're helping us get 6% more SMS subs every single day because they have perfected the art of pop-ups. You need to build your list. You have to nurture your list. You have to take care of your list. Postscript is the best at that. They're the number one name in SMS. It's their number one revenue driver. We are excited and ready to take advantage of all of the lists we've built all year, okay? Postscript has the best opt-in of all time. It is single sign-in, password autofill right on your phone, and we're going to get probably another 100,000 people to sign up between now and the end of the year. We're going to use those people. We're going to use SMS to nurture them through the funnel. It's an amazing tool. I love it. Make sure you're ready for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Postscript is here to help guide you through everything that you need when it comes to SMS. More opt-ins, more list building. Make sure you don't look like an amateur this BFCM. Use Postscript. Tell them Sean sent you. Tell them the operator sent you. Postscript will audit your SMS program for free and show you how to scale fast before Black Friday, Cyber Monday hits. When we talk about list growth, that's what you have to use before, during, and after Black Friday. You want serious gains. You want Postscript. Thank you for supporting the podcast. Thank you for being here.
Jason, how you and Danny have, like, you guys are friends, you're business partners, like you do everything. You guys do a lot of life. How does this work at HexClad? Because I remember a couple of years ago, you were talking about some of this stuff, and I think at the time you were like, there was just so many obvious things to do in the business that you didn't really need to like step back. It was straight up like, just execute, right? Like you were in that mode.
Yeah.
Now that you guys are at a more mature state and your expansion seems to be like very strategic now, like we're going to go into this market, we're going to do, like, it's a little less like, oh, that's obvious. How are you guys doing this? How do you, like, you and Danny and the team decide what are we doing next year? Like what are the big moves? Like, we're going to deploy capital. Like, where are we putting it?
Look, our North Star is how do we continue to grow at an acceptable rate and do it profitably, right? And what are the levers that need to happen to do that? Like, I talk about this with everyone at the company, everyone outside the company. It's like really not that difficult when you get, because you can just listen to public company CEOs and talk about and hear how they talk about growing their business from a high level strategic perspective. We start there and say, okay, how do we grow our business? Increase brand awareness, new products, and international growth, right? New markets. It's those three. And then what are the things that we need to do under each of those? And we tend to agree, Danny and I, we tend to agree on almost anything strategic, right? And then the strategic initiatives that we need, like we know 2026 is the year of launching more products, right? We've launched lots of products every year, but we're trying to make 2026 a big, because we've got a couple big ones, right? And then international, we may not agree on everything. Like, Danny kind of wants to open more markets than I do because he feels like we just need to be there. Whereas I look at him more from an ROI perspective. And in that case, he can overrule me, and that's fine, and I won't fight that hard unless I think it's just like, what a mistake we're making. And then typically I wouldn't have to get there because he wouldn't agree to do something that's going to have that big of an impact. But then on the tactical operational levers that need to be pulled to do all those things, there's just a lot of them, right?
Are you guys top down in those though? Like, are you talking to Connor? Let's just use Connor because he's on the MOPS. Are you spending time with Connor to help him decide what he's doing? Or is he coming to you saying like, all right, I hear you. This is what you want. Here's what I need. And here's what I think we need to do to make it happen. Like, is it more bottoms up or more top down? We tend to be bottoms up. That's why I asked.
Right. I think it's more like we have certain North Stars, right? And then we decide how are we going to achieve, we have certain, sales targets and MER targets. And then, Connor will say, okay, you want me to hit these targets. Here's where, or we're going to say, here's how much you get to spend. What do you think, what do we think we can do? Where are you going to spend it? And for the most part, like there's so many decisions that need to be made down at the growth team level that Connor and the team will do. But, we're just going to start by very simplistically looking at, how much do I think and does finance think we should spend? We've got a great VP of finance. She's very commercial. And, she and I and the FP&A will look, okay, because we have banks, we have a credit agreement. Like you have investors, we have banks, right? So we have to make decisions that are going to result in us being in a good place with the banks. And, the interesting thing that we're talking about now, just to like make it real, is how much are we going to spend in Q4 in light of the current like efficiency levels that we're hitting, which are actually pretty good. So it's very tempting to let's spend more and grow revenue more. And we will grow revenue more, but it's the question of, is that incremental dollar in revenue worth it? And the philosophy that we've taken is, let's spend up to a margin of safety where we know it's still worth it. And then we were happy to leave some money on the table there. Even if like, okay, we were wrong. We probably could have spent another 100K, 200K this month. And, that would have resulted in another $1 million, $1.5 million, whatever in sales. We're okay leaving that on the table, but we don't want to leave too much on the table. So that's like, that's an interesting thing that we're constantly talking about.
Okay, I got two things there. One, I think it's the ability to decide to leave money on the table, like that statement, that takes a lot of discipline. That's typically my observation there is like, I hear that from very seasoned operators. I know when somebody's new, when they freak out at the idea of like potentially leaving revenue on the table in Q4, they feel like that's just gone forever. I'm never going to get that customer back. Like if I don't spend the money now. So they wind up taking a lot more risk in the business out of fear of leaving money on the table. So like that would be my first observation. Okay. If you're listening, please don't be that idiot. Like be okay with some discipline and some control, especially if it means like you've got more downside protection. Like number one rule in business, stay in the damn game, no knockout punches. The second thing, and I am curious, Mike, actually for both of you, because like Jason, whether you guys decide to go public or not, it seems like with more scale, we actually need to get better at reading the tea leaves and planning and making budgets and making like more public statements. Like I think we're going to do this. Maybe Mike, how do you guys do this as a team? Like when you set a budget or a plan, are you planning the business on like a base or a bear case, and then you're just taking upside?
Right. I think this is actually the most important question, which is when you're making a plan, you know the plan is going to be wrong. And so what's the point in the modeling and the plan? Part of it is you buy inventory for that. We're in durables. And so you have to plan your supply chain around it. And it's deterministic in that, well, you bought this inventory, and so you're eventually going to have to sell it. But if it takes you 8 months instead of 6 months to sell it, or your inventory turns go from 2.5 to 0.1, is that terrible? I don't think so. So we've had this debate over and over and over again of, if we're going to have a profit model that projects our financial performance over the next 1, 3, 5 years, what is the point? What are we using that model to do? One thing you have to use your modeling to do is set expectations for shareholders about returns. Like, or their wife's asking them like, hey, or how much in distributions are we going to get this year? And it's like, well, okay, your responsibility when you're management, I think, is to set good expectations to your shareholders. And a lot of times there's overlap. A lot of times people are wearing both those hats of, here's what the business can actually produce. And so that's one of the things in the last year, there's been a lot of adjusting that with my shareholder group of like, well, here's the situation on the ground. Obviously, as things have changed, here's how this has impacted the way that you should think about dividends. So like, for example, when the trade war hit, it was like, okay, this blows up our model, and you just need to plan on, we're not going to be doing distributions for X number of months as we put more money in working capital, and just kind of see how this plays out. So I think that's one question kind of with the modeling. And then I think the other thing that modeling can help you do is it can help you think about through like headcount, like, hey, how aggressively do we need to be hiring? It can help you think through financing, like, hey, when are we going to run out of cash? When are we going to need another, a Series B? When are we going to need to add more capacity to our lending facility or things like that? And what I've basically found is in different stages of the business, what we needed our model to do was different things. So like the first couple of years, it was like literally just don't run out of cash. Like that's the model. The model is like, make sure we can make payroll next week. I had a situation where this is probably a year into the company, year and a half, where we didn't get paid by somebody when we thought we would get paid. And I just called my CFO and I was like, well, roll payroll, because, we don't want the checks to bounce. And I didn't tell anybody because I was like, it's not a big deal. They're going to get paid next Wednesday instead of on Friday. And one of my partners called me and he was like, you need to not do that again, especially not without messaging. Like that really will freak people out. So early on, it was literally like, well, you just need all the checks to cash. And then I think there was a period where the modeling was more about trying to get our arms around like, what is this business and what can this business be? Today, the modeling is more around making sure that we're communicating well with our banking partners and our retail partners and our shareholders about expectations. But it just, because models are going to be wrong, they really can't be all things. You have to really with your team define like, what's the point in the plan and what's the point in our modeling? And we're not going to try and make it do 10 things. We're going to try and make it do the most important thing for the business where it's at today.
And at different stages, in the business, the planning does different things. Like, Matt, you have investors that you need to report to, but like
and banks. I've got both, right? We have debt, we have equity, we have I have a board, we have.
But like when we were, early on, like there's a lot of people like don't get too crazy, right? Like if you've got a $2 or $3 million business, you can kind of manage it by looking at the bank account if you're smart enough to
cash basis.
Don't overextend on anything. Be super conservative. Work really hard, but be super conservative financially. As it gets, the bigger you get and the more challenging things get, right? The more challenging things get, you just got to be better. You got to be sharper. There's less room for error. There's less room to rely on good luck. We did like very little budgeting until a year ago. And
that blows my mind.
It's, it's just like we were just printing, so it was just going so well.
Yeah, but I think that's a great example. Like modeling Hexclad in some ways was an exercise in futility because you were growing. So just as your growth rate goes up, the variance on any forecast goes up as well. And so when you're growing, 100%, it's like, well, listen, we're going to do somewhere between X and 3X this year. And so it's like, well, how's that even helpful, really? So I think that's what you guys ran into, Jason.
The risk also gets exponentially higher, right? So like if you're growing at X or 2X,
the risk that you blow yourself up. And
Yeah.
that's why I think really any modeling you're doing, it's like cash modeling. It's like, hey, the only goal is to keep this growth up without going, running out of money.
we saw it from Jason, right? Like 2 years ago in I forget whatever month, he was like, I have an armada of containers coming. And I'm terrified. Like there was just so much money on the water coming in for his Q4 because the growth rate was insane. You totally saw it. I think Jason, like you guys, like we have investors. I guess you guys have investors now too, right? And you've always had like shareholders. Like you've got Gordon, but you have outside investors. But I think the thing that makes me think this is really relevant to a smaller brand, I see this in younger founders and younger brands. They get to a point where they want bank like lines of credit, debt facilities, like they want outside help, right? So they're going to move off of the fintech players, the Wayflyers and whoever else in the world. I don't think people realize that the minute you start working with a real bank and real debt facilities, you got to have your on lock. Like there's no like napkin forecast you're sending to your bank without a lot of questions coming back. So because you're managing to like debt, like service ratios, right? Like Jason, I guess there's a lot of people listening that don't have to deal with this. Can you explain why the bank is going to force you into better financial models, discipline, budgets? Like what triggers that? Why do they care?
Well, you have a credit agreement, and banks are all about risk. Banks are conservative, and so they structure their agreement to you to make sure that they get paid. They're not going to lend money to someone who's not creditworthy. So like this has been going on. Banks have been lending money for a very long time to companies, and so they have they've got rules. They've got coverage ratios. There's like a lot of ratios that you as a business need to be able to hit for the bank to A, lend you the money, and then B, continue to want to work with you. So you hear this a lot where people will trip a covenant in their credit agreement, and it's a problem. Sometimes things happen that were just unforeseen, but you as a manager, as a financial manager, need to just be, you got to at first and foremost manage to not trip those covenants, because you don't want to be in default. And look, the banks aren't going to necessarily look to take your company from you right away because they don't want to run your company. You just don't want to do that. It's just no fun, right? You need to stay on the good. So it's like the baseline. So there's a certain amount of EBITDA that you need to hit, right? If you have debt, you are more than likely a profitable company. And if it's bank debt from real banks, you need to maintain certain margins, and then there's other ratios, ratios of fixed charge and et cetera that you need to hit, and so that's where it starts. Otherwise, you just like, you don't want a bunch of angry banks calling you and showing up at your door.
In the last 90 days, my brands, Pila and Lomi, have doubled our support capacity without adding a single new hire. And that is because we moved to Rich Panel. Our CSATs are at an all-time high. I think we're in the 90s now. 50% of our tickets are fully automated, which means the team can basically handle 2 times the volume without burning out or adding more people. And with a Trustpilot integration, both brands went from a 2-star to a 4-star plus, actually, I think 4.5 in like 90 days. And the migration was probably the easiest part. I was surprised. Rich Panel handled everything: data migration, automation setup, training. We were live in just 14 days. That's insane. And they guarantee you'll cut at least 30% of your tickets in the first 60 days, or you get your money back. Not bad. So if you want to be ready for Black Friday without scrambling to add extra agents, because, I'm recording this and Black Friday's around the corner, you should just head to richpanel.com/demo. Tell them Matt from Operators or Sean or anybody. We all use this thing. That's why we're promoting it. Tell them that we sent you, and they will take very good care of you. That's it. Let's get back to the show. I can tell you, so like I like to say this. I think I said this last night at my team dinner with my exec team. My business partner was there. I like to joke that all of my biggest life lessons are actually his, because he's older and he's made so many big mistakes. Like he's been bankrupt twice. He's been in special loans. If you've never been in special loans with a bank, that's such a fun process. So it's so bad. And So I don't think I told you guys this, but I think about maybe 2.5, 3 years ago, so like rewind the clock. When we did our Series B, I also took on a mezz debt facility, right? Like we were ripping. Lomi did like $100 million in the first 18 months. Like it was freaking insane, right? So I'm like, we need access to capital. This thing is working. And then, this is one of those moments in life where my ego definitely was running the show. We took on this mezz debt facility and it was pretty good terms. Like we liked the terms. Well, a year and a bit later, there was a couple things that changed in our business. Like we had a supply chain, real bad supply chain problem in our manufacturer, and we bought too much inventory. So we were out of covenant on, I think, 2 of 3 terms. And that, like, I can tell you, like, that was a fatal blow to the company if we weren't so well connected and had really good financial partners on the equity side. Like, had we not been in that position, that was a knockout punch.
By the way, what year was this, Matt?
2023.
Yeah.
So like going into the end of 23.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It was, it's funny though, like how the time dictates the decisions you make,
Dude.
right? Like we're still coming out of COVID. There's still so much going on.
Yeah, we did that deal at the end of 22, Jason. So like I felt like, okay, we're in the now. I was really reticent to like raise any kind of capital in COVID because I'm like, this isn't real. I was old enough to know this is not happening. This is not sustainable. Like I'd been through enough to know that like, 2021, that's not normal. So we kind of waited until the end of 22 to go back to market. The downside of that is the investors were like basically wallet shut. The upside was you got a much more real mark on your company, right? So like, and I was okay with that. I was like, all right, I know I'm not going to be as valuable on paper as like some of my peers a year ago, but I think they're going to have much more pain in 3 years by doing that than I will by doing this now.
That was just the craziest time. Like I remember September 22 was like everything seemed great. If you look at the D2C public companies, I remember because I had all the bankers coming in and they're like, oh, there's this category that you fall in. It's called high growth consumer, right?
Yeah.
And the valuations in high growth consumer are incredible and the market sees it this way. And then when those high growth consumers didn't grow so high anymore, like the market just went crazy, right? And then
the snapback was nuts.
The snapback was nuts. It reminded me of the .com era. Not quite as bad, but it was. A lot of people made decisions like you during that time, for sure.
I feel like I have fairly decent judgment at this point in my
If you
career.
didn't make a bad decision, then you were actually kind of lucky. Like we didn't make any bad decisions, but I would say a lot of that was just like we were lucky enough that we weren't like forced to make one. We didn't have any reason to make one. Yeah. Like so.
This is the thing too, like that decision really like taking on that mezz debt facility, which then I had to wipe out by going out and raising money, right? Because like the bank was like, I want my money back. And I'm looking at it like, well, that's like a serious chunk of our cash. I'd like to not give it to you. So we have to go back out and raise capital. I'm sharing this because like it's easy to, when things are going right, it's very easy to fall into this trap that it's always going to continue to go right. Like you feel good, man.
Well, you just project it out into the future,
Yeah, like things are awesome.
Yeah.
And then Mike, to your point, like sometimes things are just out of your control. And in our case, like I would say like 20, 30% of our problem was out of our control. So like the markets were really changing, consumer sentiment was changing, like things were just getting harder. And then 70, 80% was just like we had never seen anything like it. So we just assumed like we've got a dragon by the tail.
Yeah.
Let's chase it. And that proved to be pretty damn dangerous.
I just think human nature is such that it's impossible when a trend is ripping to say, hey, it's going to end tomorrow. Nobody thinks that way. You know, when the COVID stuff and the things that were ripping during COVID because of stay at home and all this stuff, yes, a rational person could have said, hey, this is unsustainable for all these reasons if they had foresight. But nobody was going to bet on that when you're in the middle of the trend line. Like when your business is ripping, it's like, we need to lean into this. We're running out of inventory. And So I think the question that I'm the most curious about, because, even Jason, with you guys, when you grow as fast as you've grown, eventually there's a quarter where it's like the growth's a lot harder than it was last
Yeah.
quarter. Like this comes for everybody, that there are times when you miss a forecast and you're blowing it away. And then half the time you're missing a forecast and you're underperforming. And I think that we're making a good distinction here between how you manage that internally and how you manage that externally is probably different. But I'm curious for both of you. Matt, you're given an example here, which I think is really vulnerable and I appreciate. And I think it's one of the best things about this show is when we don't just say, hey, look at us, our businesses are awesome. But when we say like, hey, here's everything that comes with it, the good and the bad. But how did you message internally, Matt, when you felt financially distressed? Jason, the first quarter you guys had where the kind of hypersonic growth that you've been going through felt like it was slowing or the CPAs were blowing out in the wrong direction. How did you guys manage that internally with your teams?
2024 was our year that was a come down from 22 and 3. Even though it was an amazing year by just about anyone's standards, it wasn't by mine. And there were just a lot of conversations among a lot of senior people about what was going on, and we were just looking for solutions. We were looking for solutions. We were trying solutions. A lot of the solution in our business, in all of our businesses, is about marketing spend, because at least in the short term, marketing spend is a lever. In the longer term, it's about product development and new markets. But there was a lot of different conversations, and there was definitely a little bit of a like, hey, this is a wake up call, people. Just like the tariffs were a different wake up call for us. We're managing better than most with it, but like these are two out of 2024 wake up call and a 2025 wake up call. And I'm hoping that 2026 we have no wake up calls, and the business is still incredibly stellar. But that's all it is. It's like you get these wake up calls. You got to rise to the occasion. You got to sharpen things up, and we've done that. We've just gone through like a review cycle here, and I'm giving reviews to my direct reports, and I'm very, very pleased with the reviews. Like everyone has really risen to the occasion, and of course, everyone has things that they could improve, and I've given them that. But yeah, these times, even like what Matt went through in late 22 or early 23, like everyone's going to go through something like that. And that's just really separates the wheat from the chaff, right? That's where winners win, because you're going to have adversity, and figuring out like how to get through it. Time in the game, right, Matt? We talk about that all the time, like time in the game, just like, I mean, like the baseball lifestyle guys, like, talk about an incredible story. And look at, they didn't do much for a few years in a row, right? Like they just kind of were like there, and they had a nice little business. And then like they were in the game long enough where it just got figured out, and then wham.
Dude, they hit some products and like it just goes, right?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of what caught us with Lomi, is like we took a flyer on this product. It cost us millions to develop. We had the cash. Like that was the whole point of raising money. Like you've heard me say this, like I do not believe consumer companies should have outside investors. Like 99% of the time, these are not land grab opportunities. There's no winner take all in these categories. We raised outside money because R&D is very expensive, as you guys know. Like when you start taking real product development swings, that's expensive. And we were a small company at the time, so I raised some money. I think, Mike, what kind of came out of it was a couple things on how you message this that I could pass on. So the first is just go ugly early. There is no point in sugarcoating bad news, right? The key to it, though, is for your team, and especially actually probably more for yourself, but definitely for your team, is you also need to always make sure that there's hope. Like if things are bad, it's what can we hold on to? So like where is the hope? Because if people lose hope, you're screwed. Internally, your team is just done, right? And that triggered like that kind of mess up on my part probably triggered 2 years of like underperformance in the business, like really having to fix some stuff. Like 2 years of just wading through, and not everything in the business was bad. Like
we've got two brands, like one is growing, one we had to completely tear down, rebuild the product, rebuild the supply chain. So like, it's really difficult when you've got some stuff working really well, some stuff is really going wrong. So you have a communication challenge. Like that's kind of how I looked at 2 years. I'm like, this is a comms challenge. And I think there is a massive difference between missing forecast, right? So like you have a plan, we're going to always miss it, either to the upside or downside. And then there's underperformance or overperformance. Those are two different things. You know, I had 2 years where we missed our plan, but we massively overperformed as a business. And then I had 2 years where like, I felt like I couldn't do anything right. I would go home to my wife and I'm like, I thought I was pretty good at this. You know, like 18 years, I've sold a company, made a lot of cash. Then I had 2 years. I'm like, well, this is humbling.
Yeah.
You know, like every turn was like, wow, there's more poo in that corner. So I'm just sharing it because I think as leaders, you ultimately what happens as you get better, as you get bigger, or even just like time in the game, to Jason's point, you get very good at messaging, right? Like that's probably one of my big superpowers is I can sort of sit in front of people and I can give them very bad news and I can probably still get them to follow me.
All right. Operators, real talk. If your dashboards are a week old, they're not insights, they're history. You probably heard me talk about cleaning up our data. Well, we finally have it dialed, and it's because of Sarah's Pulse. We have a data foundation we can fully trust. Pulse connects us to over 200 sources. We've got to connect it to so many sources: Shopify, Amazon, TikTok, Fulfill. Every dashboard is complete, accurate, and exhaustive. My team is in the dashboards all the time. No gaps, no mismatched numbers, no manually assembling spreadsheets. I'm so glad that we must have killed 12 spreadsheets and combined them into one dashboard. Our daily growth dashboards are integral to the growth team, showing the true CAC by channel, by country. Our executive dashboard ties revenue to contribution margin down to the SKU level. And more importantly, like we get this fast, and these are actuals, not estimates. And in today's environment, every percentage point in margin with tariffs and costs of marketing costs going up, every percentage point matters, right? And for us, it's all automated. So the team can focus on doing what they do best, which is growing the business. And so we're also testing something brand new with Sarah's IQ. It's an AI chat layer that lets us just ask which SKUs drove margin in Amazon, for example, Canada last week, and what promo impacted repeat purchase rate. And it gives the answers quickly, backed by clean data, unified data. And so here's the part you want to hear. A few operators, podcast listeners, can get early access to the beta. Sarah will even co-design an IQ proof of concept tied to the top 3 KPIs that you want to move. It's not a canned demo. It's your data, your metrics, your insights. This is huge. Just to see it alive. It's extremely limited. Only a handful of brands will get in as a launch offer. If you want dashboards that you can trust and instantly answer your toughest question, talk to Sarah's Analytics. And yes, this is just for our podcast listeners. Sarah's has just been a great advocate for the pod, a great ally of the pod. And there are going to be a lot of AI tools coming out from Microsoft, Shopify, et cetera, but they can only be good as good as your underlying data infrastructure. That's the thing. Having your data infrastructure set up properly is everything. That's why we started with Saris, and then they keep building more on top of it. But no matter what, in the AI world, you need to have a data infrastructure that works. And I don't think there's any better place to do it than Saris. So you can also take an assessment and understand your business's AI readiness with Saris at sarisanalytics.com. So get AI ready the right way, get your data in the right place. Go check out Saris Analytics.
I think there's a big key that you stay on the right side of that, where people don't start to perceive you as a spend doctor. And
totally,
that's where you really start to lose people. And like, I think you may actually gave a really good piece of advice. There's a euphemism, like, if you're going to eat a crap sandwich, you don't nibble. I think there's some truth to that with bad news, that it's like dripping out bad news is way worse than just kind of ripping off the Band-Aid and being like, if anything, overstating the bad news and just kind of getting that flushed out of the system. And I think this is even what PR specialists would tell people. But then, because then once you kind of rip the Band-Aid off, you can actually start to kind of heal from that. But I think you're right, Matt. People need something to believe in and a reason to believe that the future is going to be brighter and better than today. There's a kind of a related idea that we've tried to be really proactive in compensating well within our company. And we do a lot of surveying and looking at how would people describe their compensation level, how satisfied are they. We do this Great Places to Work survey. And usually these surveys, it's like on a scale of 1 to 10, how satisfied are you with this or that, or whatever. And no matter what we did, it was like, you can't really get past 8 or 9 in terms of how people will describe their comp. Now, listen, 8 or 9 out of 10 is like great. But I was like, literally, what else could we do? Like, what does it take to get 10? And then I realized that basically nobody's ever going to put a 10 on comp because it's basically saying there's no way things can be better in the future. And nobody wants to believe that ever, right? Like, I don't want to believe that. You don't want to believe that. It's kind of like, even when things are good, you want to believe, you need to believe that the future can be even better. And when things are bad, you need to believe that the future can be even better. And I think that that's definitely part of what I've learned this year is that people are actually more resilient to bad news and to hard times than you think they are. That this has actually been proven out quite a bit through psychological studies and different things. Like, you ask people, if X happened, would you be able to handle it? And they'd be like, your child dying or getting fired or declaring bankruptcy or, something really difficult, getting diagnosed with cancer. And they'll tell you, no, I wouldn't be able to handle that. I think that'd be the end. You go to people where that's actually happened to them and you see like, oh, they actually are more resilient than they think they are.
Yeah.
That people are able to, by and large, work through these, not always, but they're able to work through these really adverse events. So people are more resilient than we tend to think they are. And I think as a leader, one of the ways that I've erred in the past is that I've treated people as more fragile than they are. There is a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy also, where if you treat people as fragile, they become more fragile. So I think the idea that you have to be, that leadership, there's something in Good to Great where they talk, I think it's the Stockton paradox or whatever, but they talk about this idea that people can deal with hard things and they can deal with bad news, but they have to have a belief that it will get better eventually, that the future is brighter. And I think that that's what leadership has to look like when there's a miss of some kind in your business. Like, this isn't what we wanted. This is hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat that this is bad. If anything, I might overstate a little bit how bad this is. But there's all these reasons why I feel confident in our future, and I feel confident that tomorrow is going to be better than today. But we're going to have to buckle down and we're going to have to work hard.
Yeah, there's 2 things, and I think that there's 2 ways to handle this too, Mike, that I can think of that gives people confidence. Like, you can lean into hope, right? So the first is, in my case, I have been at this a while, like this business building thing. So I have a lot of stories and experience to pull on. So like, we were eating, but I could look at people and say like, it's going to be okay. Like, this has happened to me before. This is a story. Like, and you can give them confidence in you as a leader because that you still know what you're doing. If you don't have that though, like, let's say you're a younger founder, you're new, not even younger, like you're just new to the role, new to being CEO. There's a lot of stories from other companies you can pull on that are going to be very similar to you. And it's like, how did they navigate? This is the wonderful part about the internet is like, we're swimming in examples now of like, and I like to tell my team, like, this is not new. Like, we are not breaking any new ground here. Like, when we're winning, it's not novel. When we're losing, not novel. Like, there's somebody who has been through this before, and probably us, when you've been around long enough. So I think that's like my first part is you have to find ways. The spin doctor thing is so real. You don't want to be that, but you also need to find ways to build confidence in the team. So like, hey, that sucked, but like, here's why everything's going to be great. So that's like my big takeaway there. I think the other thing that jumps out to me is like, so obviously this is not all bad news, right? And my business partner has this thing he always says, and sometimes it's like the most annoying thing in the world that he says, and I want to punch him when he says it. So it's like, if I'm because like I'm the CEO, he's my chairman, but he's my co-founder. Like, and we've been friends for a long time. Similar, Jason, to like you and Danny, right? Brad and I do a lot of life together. And he always says this thing. He's like, listen, man, it's happening for you, not to you. And when you're in the you don't want to hear that. That's not the but it's true. So we went through 23 and 24, restructuring things, rebuilding things, like really hard work. I did layoffs, like we had to rebuild a lot of stuff, redevelop a product, the supply chain, everything. Well, dude, when 25 hit and tariffs came around, turns out we were in great shape. Everybody else is now like all of my competition is in a place where like, nope, now they got to do layoffs. Now they have to rebuild everything. And I just went through 18 months of swimming through to do all this work. And the trade war hits, and now we're in a really good position. So I'm only sharing that because like it will get better. Like the point is stay in the game, make the best decisions you can. And ultimately, those macro forces that sometimes go against you, sometimes they go for you.
Well, and part of what this discussion is really about is about human nature and about expectations. And you guys have probably heard the phrase before, which I think there's a lot of wisdom in, that satisfaction is the gap between expectation and reality. That we tend to think, oh, I actually get happiness or I get satisfaction from just like the actual thing, the inherent thing, but we really don't. It's actually like, how does what has happened compare to what I expected to happen? So for example, if you took Mike from 20 years ago and you just showed me my bank statement, it'd be like, man, that's amazing. Wow, like this is great, right? Because 20 years ago, Mike would just like, his expectations around finances would be very different. If you showed Mike 12 months ago, my bank statement, I'd be like, what happened? You know, did something happen to the business? Like, I would think this number would be bigger because of X, Y, and Z. And I think that those can both be true because we relativize the way that we process everything to what we expected to happen. So for some businesses, making $10 million this year is just an incredible, you feel like you're on cloud nine, life couldn't be better. For other businesses, it's the end of the world if you made $10 million this year. How did we only make $10 million? And as a leader, what you have to do is understand what the expectations are of the people around you. And when you're going to get something that's quite a bit worse than their expectations, you've got to manage that. And I do think there's also something here to be said for, like, I tend to be the type of leader that's like, man, the future's awesome and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And you do it because you want to motivate people and you want to get them, you want to get them excited. But I've learned that that's kind of dangerous because what you're really doing is you're ramping up their expectations. And so as I'm getting older and maybe a little bit wiser, I'm realizing, hey, there's some real wisdom in under promise, over deliver,
100%, man. Have you guys read the book, The Gap and the Gain? It's Ben Hardy and Dan Sullivan. I think everybody in leadership knows Dan Sullivan, but Dan Sullivan, Ben Hardy, it's a very fast read. It's on this topic, Mike, like the hedonic treadmill. It's particularly important for like highly driven people. So like entrepreneurs, Jason, Panzers, anybody who has like a lot of drive and is pushing and it's like grow, grow, grow. The Gap and the Gain is amazing. Everybody should read it because it will help you manage this, like, where are we going? And also how far have we come? Like the forever moving horizon. It's never enough. It's never enough. It's never enough. I actually think as a leader, it's a great book to read because it'll help you manage, number one, your own emotions. Because like when you are a founder CEO, you have so much permission and so much power that you are your own enemy. And you're the biggest liability and the biggest asset to the company. And I can say on experience, like when I am my own largest liability, it's because I'm not managing my own emotions or my own drive around something. So like that's where bad judgment comes from, at least for me. Maybe for some people less so, but everybody should read The Gap and the Gain. I think it's like just a killer book. So simple. Jason, any final thoughts, dude, on the whole planning and all? This has actually been a great conversation. I like this.
I've just really enjoyed learning from others in this space because we're all just trying to figure it out. We're really all just trying to figure it out. There's no right way to do it. I'm hoping that Saris Analytics and some of their new AI stuff is going to make my budgeting and planning better. They were just in here last week and we did like a whole deep dive on it, doing some really cool stuff.
Oh, very cool.
I want to like go into my data warehouse and just like ask it a question and have it spit out. It'll allow me to like
Build me a forecast,
like
please.
more easily, like just report stuff too. So yeah, know your numbers, guys. Know your numbers. Be in them.
100%.
Just be in the numbers. God, it's not that hard. All right, boys.
Let's wrap it.
That's the pod.
That's the pod.
All right. Great.
That was a great combo.
All right, thanks for making it all the way to the end of this episode. Wherever you are in the world, it is awesome to have you here. If you do not already subscribe to this show, that is my one ask, is please go to whatever platform you are watching or listening to this on. It could be YouTube, it could be Spotify, Apple, I don't care. Just go hit the subscribe button. Please pump our egos up. It helps. And before we go, one more thank you to the sponsors, Fulfill, Postscript, Northbeam, Ceres, and Rich Panel. Awesome guys running these companies. We all use them. These are our vendors. That's the only reason they're sponsors of the show. So thanks again to those people.